yesterday in New York or the New York, New Jersey area, Jets made news by signing Mecole Hardman and then flipping Elijah Moore, their second-round choice from 2 drafts ago, who last year had some gear grinding, I think, with the Jets. He is now a Cleveland Brown, and it cost the Browns a second-round choice. The Jets also flipped a third to them. The reason why I bring all this up in such long-winded fashion is that the Jets are clearly making moves right here with a second-round pick that's now in their arsenal to go along with the other one that they have in succession. It looks like they're putting some capital together to give to Green Bay at some point to end all this that we know is going to happen. Where do things stand right now between Jets and Packers and Aaron Rodgers? What do you got for me, Tom?
I think that at minimum, Rich, adding that extra second-round pick gives you more options. There's more different types of packages, which is something Joe Douglas historically has done in trade talks, which is say, hey, here's 2 or 3 different options. I'll do one of these. Which one do you want to work off of? The Packers-Jets conversations go back weeks now prior to permission being granted for Rodgers to talk to the Jets. There was those initial conversations the Packers would have liked to get the trade compensation locked in before granting permission, but the sides were not quite on the same page in terms of what that looked like. The clock was ticking, and Aaron Rodgers had not declared his intentions at that point to anyone, saying that he wanted to play for the Packers, the Jets, or not play at all. So what the Packers ultimately had to do was kind of make the decision, okay, we need to get Aaron to decide something here. We can't delay these conversations, so let's let the Jets have that talk, figure it out, and then if Aaron decides he wants to move on, then we'll work out the compensation after. They're not far, Rich, from my understanding, but they're not close either. In other words, it's not as if the Packers are saying we want 2 first-round picks and the Jets are saying we'll give you a 4th. It's not like that. They're substantially closer than that. The Packers are not trying to get 2 1s. The Jets, I certainly do not believe intend to give up this year's number 1, which is the 13th overall pick. And so then you're into different combinations of either conditional picks or second-round picks. And, at some point they've got to figure out, can they actually work this thing out? Usually, there's pressure points that force action in a lot of these cases. I do anticipate that with Brian Gutekunst and Joe Douglas both at the NFL meetings to begin this weekend in Phoenix, they'll probably sit down face-to-face and have this conversation. But if, nothing can get done now, which, let's face it, there's not like a lot of urgency necessarily to get it done right now, then your next pressure point is really prior to the NFL draft. And if the Packers want to pick in the 2023 draft, they have to do it by Thursday or latest Friday of draft week. If you get beyond that, then now you're into kind of this nebulous territory here where it doesn't really matter to the Jets if Rodgers is on the team prior to, any time before training camp, because he can fly everybody out in June, just fly out all the skill guys and work out with them in California. That's not a big deal. It really comes down to in training camp, and then as you get close to the regular season, you need them on the roster. And the Packers are going to have to make the decision here. Do you, run that risk of going beyond the draft and getting draft capital out into 2024? I wouldn't think the Jets would want 2025 picks because for all they know, Aaron Rodgers wanting to be a member of the team in 2024. So you've got all these different types of moving parts. There's different options you can do in terms of putting conditions on the picks where if you have a certain level of personal or team success, it could be a higher pick. There's probably a path forward in that regard. But I certainly also understand if the Packers are sitting there and saying, this is Aaron Rodgers, a 4-time NFL MVP, a guy who 1 year ago we paid on a contract that we thought made him a Packer for life. We didn't intend to be in this position. We're not letting go of this guy unless we're assured that we have a first-round pick. That's the kind of stuff that you've got to be able to work through here. And a lot of times, Rich, the best trades are the ones where nobody's really happy. This is probably going to be one of those situations where everybody's going to have to give something in order to make this thing work prior to late April.
I don't know, a little surprised that how is this not hammered out before they even get on a plane to go see Aaron Rodgers? I mean, look, I understand what is said publicly, but Rodgers came out of his retreat knowing he was returning. He went through his workouts and knowing he was returning. He made his intentions known. He wanted to play for the Jets. The Jets had already, flown out to see him before even getting on the plane. How is this not hammered out? Right? I mean, where it's just like, if we're going to do this, this is the only way that we're going to do it. And we know, he doesn't want to come back to play for you anymore. You don't want him. We could use him. Before we get on a plane, before we even go down this road, this is what we're willing to do. I'm kind of surprised that wasn't hashed out. Now it's a whole long, drawn-out process where we're wondering who's got leverage, Tom.
Well, and like I said, Rich, they did have those conversations. The Packers ideally would have liked the compensation to be locked in prior to the deal being done. I'm sure the Jets would have too, but they weren't there. And now all of a sudden it's the first week of March. And if you say, no, you can't talk to them until we work out the trade, and at that time you're kind of in a standoff of sorts, then what do? You don't let them talk to Aaron for weeks. Then Aaron says, okay, fine. If I have to make a decision now, I'm retiring. And then 3 weeks from now, it's like Brett Favre, and now he wants to come back, and it's an entirely different type of a mess. I don't know if there was a really clean solution here. Again, I would just emphasize they're not on completely different pages. It's not as if you've got totally disparate offers. You're trying to hammer down, what does this actually look like? What is the final compensation? And so the Jets getting that extra second-round pick yesterday, maybe that does give them, a little bit more flexibility in terms of what they're willing to do. Maybe there's a package here that makes sense that was not possible previously. But, again, I don't believe, just my opinion, I don't believe that the Packers want to walk away from this without a hard first-round pick. If they don't get that at some point, do you just take the best offer before the draft to make sure you get picks now? Or do you kind of go into Crazytown after the draft where then it's, very much, hey, we're going to hold on to the guy and we're going to mess up your season if we don't get the type of compensation that we want to. And then there's not really a clear end date other than before the start of the regular season when they have to pull the trigger on that option bonus.
Catch the Rich Eisen Show every single day on the Roku channel, 12 to 3 Eastern, for free.